So 2026 has only just begun, really, and it feels like 2026 is picking up right where 2025 left off. Doesn't seem to be a day goes by without some breaking, huge news story with global significance. Things that, if they happened in isolation, would be huge stories, would have huge impacts. But these are not happening in isolation. They haven't been for the last few years, and everything just seems to be pushing us towards one endpoint that I can see. I hope to God that I am wrong. But it feels like the world is edging closer to a global conflict. World War 3. We might, if they still exist in the future, we might look in our history books and see that the start of World War 3 was a date prior to where we are today. It may have begun already. We may look back at 2022 and Russia going into Ukraine. We might look back further. So, in this very cheery episode tonight, I'm going to look at how close we are to World War 3. Are we there already? I'm going to give some of my opinions. That is what this channel is about. Who am I? I'm just a normal dude with a big mouth. So, this is Stu Know Who. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, follow me on X, and like the damn video. Let's get into it. So, in the last week, the UK helped the US to seize a Venezuelan/Russian ship. Now, with what happened just after New Year, with the US going into Venezuela and taking out President/dictator Maduro, which was that was seismic, that happening. This was a guy who'd been, and a country that'd been sanctioned by countries all over the world, including our own. It's amazing now how people are flying flags and saying, somehow trying to say that Maduro's a good guy or something. He's not. I'm not saying Trump is, but Maduro, he's not. The thing is, Venezuela are allied with Russia. I believe they are allied with China. They seem to be the new Axis powers. That's how it feels. It's China, Russia, Iran, Venezuela, North Korea. Possibly throw Pakistan in with that. And then you've got the, NATO, European countries, America, Canada. There's a definite clear division, a dividing line between both sides at the moment. And countries seem to be falling on one side or the other, or at least the military powerful ones. Which again should be a huge cause for concern when powerful countries are teaming up. They're not teaming up to go and play a game of football. No. So, to go back to this ship, it was a Venezuelan ship that was... Venezuela had sanctions on it from the US. to do with the gas and the oil. And then it had a name change and it was Russian. And then just off the UK coast, it was, don't know how you describe it, taken. Let's read the article anyway. So the headline, this is on BBC News: UK seizes Russian flagged tanker in Atlantic as UK confirms it gave support to operation. So in summary, the US has seized a Russian flagged vessel in North Atlantic linked to Venezuelan oil. It also said it apprehended a second tanker in the Caribbean in the back-to-back boarding of the Ghost Fleet ships. The UK military supported the US operation to seize the tanker, called the Marinera, with air surveillance and a Navy ship. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says Marinera's crew will be brought to the US for prosecution if necessary. Russia's foreign ministry earlier said the UK must not hamper their return. Leavitt continued to say the vessel, which US authorities are calling the Bella One, was deemed stateless after flying a false flag. One thing governments know about is false flags. I think they might mean a different type of false flags here, but yeah, they know all about that shit. Moscow says the tanker was only temporarily flagged to Russia and that no state has the right to use force against vessels properly registered in other countries' jurisdictions. The ship is accused of breaking US sanctions and shipping Iranian oil. It's historically transported Venezuelan crude oil, but reports say it's empty at the moment. So this alone, I don't know whether you could call this an act of war. I know if they had done it to one of our ships or one of our allies' ships, I don't think we would be throwing our hands up and saying, fair cop. Yeah, fair dues. You caught me. I was trying to get around those sanctions. I was a bit of a naughty boy, fair enough. I don't think we would be doing that. I think we would be saying that this was an act of war. Bare minimum, an act of hostility. Now, there's been a huge amount of saber rattling since Russia went into Ukraine. Huge amount of saber. Well, you could call it dick measuring. You know, let's not beat around the bushes. My dad's harder than your dad. That's the type of crap. That is what modern day politics is. That's how it feels. My dad's harder than your dad. Doesn't seem to be a month go by without threats of escalation between Russia and NATO, Russia and the US, the US abandoning Europe, Europe wanting to abandon America, but then realising that we're pretty spineless without them. Again, love or loathe Donald Trump. I'm kind of neutral on anyone who's in politics. If they do something good, I say fair dues. If they do something bad, I point at them and laugh. One thing you do have to give Donald Trump credit for, and that might leave a bitter taste in your mouth afterwards, but he called out NATO. He called out the NATO partners for not investing properly in their defence. We have spent, I say we, the UK, but the rest of Europe, far too bloody long going around starting shit, knowing we've got some big dude behind us that can back us up. And it feels a little bit like the big dude said, I've had enough of this. You keep getting in shit and I have to fight it. Kind of calling our bluff a little bit. Again, if the US pull out of NATO, let's just say it won't be good. It won't be good for peace. It won't be good for our country, full stop. And the rest of Europe. So to continue through this article, so the US has seized the oil tanker sailing under the Russian flag. I've already said that. The White House said the ship was deemed stateless after flying a false flag. I already read these bits. Let's continue down. So 2 US videos show seizure of Sophia oil tanker in the Caribbean, which happened around the same time that the ship off the UK was being taken as well. This is really stepping up. The thing is, the oil was sanctioned. The sanctions were in place. They went around the sanctions. From their point of view, they probably believe they're doing right by their people. You tend to find with dictators like these, they don't give 2 shits about their own people, but they like to look as though they do. So what is the shadow fleet? We talked a lot about the shadow fleet today, but what is it? Shadow fleets or ghost fleets are becoming increasingly common, with Venezuela, Iran and Russia all accused of using them to avoid sanctions on oil. They are 3 countries that have been hugely sanctioned by the West. False flags and obscure insurance are among the methods used by these shadow vessels, which are often agent tankers. Some are suspected of undersea sabotage, illicit drone launches, or spoofing their location data. Financial intelligence firm S&P Global estimates that 1 in 5 oil tankers worldwide are used to smuggle oil from sanctioned countries. Of these, estimates suggest 10% carry only Venezuelan oil, 20% Iranian oil, and 50% are exclusively dedicated to Russian oil. All the sanctions we put on Russia since the invasion, you wonder, how can they afford to keep going to war? How can they afford to keep replenishing their stockpile of weapons? Countries need oil. Maybe we should just stop oil. Everyone go glue yourself to a pavement and dye your hair fucking green. Earlier in the Commons, UK Defence Secretary John Healey said the Marinera or Bella was a sanctioned stateless vessel with a long history of nefarious activity linked to Russia and Iran. He said there was an increasing web of shadow shipping. Say that 3 times. Shadow shipping. That undermines global trade and threatens the UK's security, with some 544 vessels sanctioned by the UK and its allies. So I'm not going to go through the whole article, but this on its own is a massive story. For this to be happening the way it is, and to be happening in our waters, and we've heard stories for the last few years about Russian vessels in our waters, seem to be attracted to our underwater cables. If they make the lights go out and they're out for a few days in our country, you watch the food chain go to shit. People don't have power, electricity, gas, whatever it may be. World War III doesn't necessarily mean big fucking bombs dropping on you. Cyber attacks, things like that. We live in a digital age where attacks can be subtle, very subtle, and devastating and harmful beyond all belief. I know when you think of World War III, or at least when I think of World War III, or used to, my thought was mushroom clouds. I don't think that's the only thing we need to be scared of, the only thing we need to be worried of, because cyber attacks, bringing down global banking. The UK's economy is so London-centric, and a lot of that is the financial services that are based in London, that is all digital. They bring that down to its knees. I was going to say our country's fucked. I would say the politicians over the last decade have done their best to try and get us there anyway. I do not think it's going to take a lot to bring us to our knees, to put us in an even weaker position than we are currently in. And that honestly scares the shit out of me. And if World War III was to take place, these are some of the things that will be happening along the way. So what was Russia's response to this? Because obviously there had to be a response, they had to say something. And as I said, there's been a lot of saber rattling, a lot of dick measuring. No one wants to appear weak. So Russia floats horror World War III nuclear threat as US sees tankers. They've said sink American boats. UK forces support the seizure, yet we know that. Let's get to what Russia have said. A high-profile member of the Russian Duma issued a chilling threat to the states following the seizure of 2 oil tankers believed to be part of the so-called Ghost Fleet. Let's see how my Russian is. Non-existent. Alexei Zhuravlov. I don't think that was a bad attempt. If you think I nailed that, you gotta leave the video a like, because I'm pretty impressed with that. Anyway, he's the first ever head of the Defense Committee. Went as far as to suggest nuclear weapons could be deployed in response, as per the military doctrine of the country. He likened the seizure of the Marinera, previously called the Bella 1, to an attack on Russian territory, as it was flying under the Russian flag. Side note, if it was the other way around, we would view an attack on us. We would. We need to provide a military response, attack with torpedoes, or sink a couple of American boats. This is nothing more than piracy, the seizure of a civilian vessel by the armed US Navy. Oh, joy of joy. So, he continued, it's essentially the same as an attack on Russian territory since a tanker was flying our national flag. There is no doubt we must respond firmly and swiftly. Our military doctrine even envisages the use of nuclear weapons in response to such an attack, especially since, according to available information, a Russian submarine and some other Russian military ships were located somewhere near the vessel. We've heard, as I've heard Donald Trump call it, the N-word a lot. We've heard nuclear a lot, and that is a threat that I thought was consigned to the history books. I hoped it was. It seems that every time there's an escalation, the talk of nuclear comes out again. And the worrying thing for me is, I'm not a scientist, no shit. But I'm quite a switched on dude. with MAD, or mutually assured destruction. I thought the idea of nuclear weapons was to make sure that nobody would use nuclear weapons. If we've got these things that can wipe out humanity, wipe people off the face of the planet, there is no more existence. And if they fire one at us, we fire one back. And surely there's no fucking way that someone's going to use it. That is what mutually assured destruction is all about. Except people seem to have moved past that now. Leaders, politicians, political commentators. Fuck it, let's go drop a nuke on them. Yep, and they send 4 back at you. So you send 8 back at them. And they send all they got at you. But you might be able to get yours off back at them before those land on you. Half the world's wiped out. Other half of the world in a nuclear winter where food can't grow. Shit is irradiated everywhere. I imagine acid rain falling from the skies. No sun. Because these politicians who are better people can't sit round a table and say, maybe we should try not to end the world. But fuck, what do I know? I heard someone, a former military guy earlier, on the radio, and he said something along the lines of, people say that he's a warmonger. He's not. He is a pacifist. He does not want war. He has experienced war firsthand. However, sometimes you need to project strength. You need to fight for your freedom to make sure you have that freedom. My concern is, and I get what he was saying, I do, and if you've got someone trying to kick in your door to come and do whatever, you best believe I'm going to be the other side of the door with a hammer. You know what I mean? But it seems to me there doesn't seem to be a want for peace. And peace is going to come at, no one's going to get what they want. It's a compromise, and that's what happens. Russia probably wants a lot of Ukraine, if not all of it. Russia probably wants the government that is in Ukraine at the moment that definitely leans towards the EU to not be there anymore. And he probably wants a government that leans more favourably towards Russia. Ukraine, who have fought so bravely and earned a lot of admirers, they probably want Putin to say, my bad, leave all Ukrainian territory, including Crimea, say, sorry about that, and we'll pay for all the damage. And guess what? That's not going to happen either. There has to be some sort of compromise if you want to see peace. Now, talking of peace, our dear leader, Sir Keir Starmer, easily confusable. He was in France with another leader who I think is fantastic, President Macron. can see Zelensky there thinking, wow. Genuinely, wow. I'd rather go back to the war zone than be here with these two clowns. My personal opinion, what do I know? So, the PM signs Paris Declaration. UK and France agreed to send troops into Ukraine as part of a peace deal. Starmer paves the way for British boots on the ground as Trump team hails big milestone in ending war. Now, before I continue with this article, one thing that really pisses me off, is I have a memory that is slightly better than the goldfish's. And the reason we were sending so much money and arms to Ukraine and to the Ukrainian people, who I've already said are doing a sterling, incredible job. But the reason we were sending so much was we did not have to send our troops here. That was what was told to us. Look back, there will be countless articles, countless interviews, probably statements and all sorts from our political greats. The reason we are funding Ukraine so much is so that we don't have to. They are fighting for us. But now we're signing our troops. Now Sir Keir Starmer. Twat. He's not been in number 10 Downing Street for much more than 5 minutes. And it seems every second breath he's U-turning or apologising and going in a different direction. I mean, he's either stupid, full of shit, or a little bit of both. He's definitely full of shit. I hope he's stupid. Because if he's full of shit, but he knows what he's doing, that scares me even more. But we were told, no troops over there. That's why we're funding Ukraine to the degree that we are. And I know I'm going to be told, yeah, but this is in peacekeeping. We have troops on the ground. It only takes one mistake, one misfired missile, one incident to happen, and Article 5's in play and we're at war. Not to mention the fact, with everything that's gone on from both sides, which was started by Russia, but with everything that's gone on, how do you think the Russians are going to feel knowing that next door to you is the guys who want you dead and you want them dead? But what? You're supposed to get along? Nothing's going to happen? Really? I think that's pretty naive. So to continue with the article, let's see what these great leaders have said. Sir Keir Starmer tonight paved the way for British troops to be sent to Ukraine as part of a peacekeeping force. Following talks in the French capital, the Prime Minister signed an agreement dubbed the Paris Declaration to commit the UK to the deployment of forces. The document outlines how Britain and France will establish military hubs across Ukraine in the event of a peace deal with Russia. My guess would be that something like this would completely scupper any peace deals. Because as I already said, do you think the Russians want you next door? No, they do not. So Sir Keir Starmer signed the agreement alongside French President Emmanuel Macron and Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky after discussions between, this has got to be the shittest title of a gang I've ever heard, the Coalition of the Willing of Western Allies. The Paris talks were attended by Steve Witkoff, who is Donald Trump's peace envoy, and Gerard Jared Kushner, UK President's son-in-law, the multinational force for Ukraine is set to act as a reassurance force should Moscow and Kyiv agree to end their almost 4 years conflict. Things like this before, it's good to have a plan in place, I know that, and if peace seems closer than ever, but probably never further apart. I heard that the peace deal was 90% done, but it's that 10% that no one's going to back down on, which means peace is a million miles away. So meanwhile, the US is set to provide security guarantees to the peacekeeping force, with Mr. Kushner revealing Mr. Trump is ready to offer real backstops. At a press conference in Paris, Sir Keir said Ukraine and its allies were closer to peace than ever, but warned the hardest yards are still ahead. The PM added that Russian President Vladimir Putin is not showing he's ready for peace. As already said in this episode, it's a compromise. And when you're having peace, look, I don't want Russia to gain a fucking inch of territory. I don't. I'm also a realist. And do you think they're just going to say, yeah, my bad? Put it this way. If Vladimir Putin was to pull all the troops out, wave the white flag, say, my bad, and we'll pay for all the damages, I will give it 48 hours before he is no longer with us. He knows that. Ex-member of the KGB, or as I'm told, you can't be an ex-member. A bit like the CIA. He knows that. He knows he needs a win. Now, to go back to why he invaded, and like I said, piece of shit, I definitely do not side with Putin at all. But NATO, the EU, have edged further eastward after promising they wouldn't. At some point, you keep poking the bear, he's going to fucking bite you. We have blame on our hands too. So when it comes to a peace deal, there needs to be compromise. But nobody seems prepared to accept that at the moment. Both sides are saying, you do what I want. I hope and pray there's peace. I hope and pray that my fears for WW3 are ill-advised. I'm being a bit melodramatic, and I hope in 6 months' time I look back on how I fear for it now and I think, wow, I was wrong when I look a bit of a dick. Yeah, I hope that. I hope that. But with everything that's going on and the lack of compromise from all sides, where's the off-ramp? What is the end game? We want peace in this UK, in this country. But what is Keir Starmer's vision of peace? What happens with the Donbass region? What happens with Crimea? What happens with other regions where the Russians are already there? What happens there? What is Russia's definition and vision of peace? Is it more land? Is it a change in government in Ukraine? What is the Ukrainian government and Ukrainian people? You know, let's be clear, that's the most important thing. What is their vision of peace? I don't think any of them are ever going to sync up. Now, with regards to the boots on the ground, I already said, I'm not happy because we were told that this was not going to happen. We were told by the previous government. So I'm not just having a go at Keir Starmer. I'm having a go at Keir Starmer, Rishi Sunak. I'm not going to have a go at Liz Truss because she was there for 2 seconds. I am having a go at Boris Johnson. All of them. Our country post-COVID. Our country post-2008 financial crisis has been on a downward spiral. And that was accelerated after COVID. We paid people to stay at home. That money wasn't free. And you see the cost of everything going up since. My wife gets annoyed. You seen the price of this? And I'm like, yeah. There was a flu-like virus. It's worse than the flu, I know, before someone tries to shoot me down for it. The world overreacted and kept locking us in our house. And I called it in 2020 that it was going to be inflationary. Turns out I might have been onto something. Then you have to factor in the wars, and I know it was in the lockdowns, it was the wars. Something I said to my wife back in the dark days of COVID-19. After I said it will have a negative effect on finances, I remember saying to her several times, and what worries me is when countries go poor, they go to war. Because you can always spend money on the military, pay people in the manufacturing sector to go build you nice shiny new bombs. I said that. I hoped I was wrong. I hope I'm wrong with how I'm feeling right now. But to go back to the meeting in Paris that Starmer and President Macron and Zelensky had. This article on the Mirror says Vladimir Putin stumped after truth vow changed the game. Former Russian Prime Minister Mikhail Kasyanov said an agreement by the coalition of the willing to put boots on the ground in Ukraine has left Vladimir Putin unsure what to do next. A former Russian Prime Minister said the UK and France's pledge to put boots on the ground in Ukraine has changed the game and stumped Vladimir Putin. Mikhail Kasyanov said the coalition of the willing had left the Russian leader unsure what to do next. It comes after Putin's allies reacted angrily after Keir Starmer said the UK and France would establish military hubs on Ukrainian soil if a peace deal is reached. You're kidding me, they weren't happy. So Mr. Kasyanov told Times Radio that the Russian president will have to change his attitude. Yesterday in Paris, the coalition of the willing changed the approach, changed the game, and in fact right now they separated the issue of security guaranteed for Ukraine from other points, and they made a significant move. And now they try not to satisfy Putin's demands, but they're trying to satisfy Mr. Trump's demands. He continued, they reconfirmed the transatlantic unity because Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff confirmed all the agreement they achieved yesterday with the backstops of the USA. This is absolutely a great move. And troops on the ground, that's an important thing. Right now, just Putin has nothing to say. He doesn't know what to do, how to react. To reject everything, it means to reject Trump's approach. Yesterday, the coalition just demonstrated that Ukraine would continue to enjoy full support of European countries with the backstops of the US. That is important. It's pressure on Putin. Now he has also got to change his attitude. So Britain has agreed to build protective facilities and military equipment to help Kyiv defend itself. Bloody blood. This we know. So former Russian Prime Minister is saying, look, that Putin is stumped. Putin is stumped. Let's hope this is a masterstroke. I just know that Russia's not going to like it, and that is going to scupper any peace deal being signed, in my view. And in my firm belief, we were told there'll be none of our troops on the ground. And you fucking lied. You liar, Keir Starmer. As well as a lot of the rest of the other people that have been government since this war started. You say one thing, do another. Thinking we won't remember. The internet exists. Things you say are remembered because they're there. You said there would be no troops on the ground, and now you're promising to send them. So, to go into that, on the Independent, I'm having computer issues tonight, so apologies if it's a little bit glitchy. I think it's the bad weather that we've had. My internet's been pretty poor for the last few days. But enough with that. So, from the Independent, is the UK really ready to put boots on the ground in the Ukraine? Britain's dwindling military might in numbers. So let's have a look at that, because it's okay to promise that we're going to do it. I was listening to a phone in earlier and it made me chuckle, it did. Somebody had rung in and said, put as many boots on the ground as you want. There'll be no one wearing them though, because we ain't got enough soldiers. I was like, damn. Probably not a bad analogy. We're just going to lob boots here. So deployment to Ukraine would likely require thousands of troops, which the UK may not be able to spare. So Prime Minister Keir Starmer has signed a historic deal to deploy British troops to Ukraine in the event of a peace deal. But his pledge has drawn scepticism amid growing concern about the UK's military capabilities and dwindling troop numbers during an increasingly precarious global climate. Reform leader Nigel Farage derided the commitment, saying the UK is in no position to put boots on the ground in the Ukraine during a press conference on Wednesday. With what boots, he asked, what kit? We might be able to go for 6 to 8 weeks, but we're in no position to do it. That is a sad state of what used to be one of the elite militaries in the world. We used to run like 3/4 of the world, didn't we, with the British Empire? We can't even defend our own fucking country no more. So below we look at how the country's military equipment stacks up at present. So dwindling troop numbers. The most recent government figures show there are around 147,000 people in the UK Armed Forces, with just over half of that assigned to the army. But Sir Keir Starmer's promise to send troops to Ukraine could require as many as 50,000, according to Sir Richard Shiref, formerly Deputy Commander of NATO. Sir Richard stressed in an interview this week that British troops must be ready to fight Putin's army if deployed. There's not going to be a peace until Russia is forced into it, he told LBC. And now there is a clear plan from France and the UK to provide a reassurance force for an enforcement force. But it's got to be the right capability, and it's got to have the right numbers, the means, and it's got to be proper capabilities. Britain's numbers are a fraction of other major powers, with India boasting over 3 million, China 2 million, and Russia, the US and North Korea with around 1.5 million. And we've got 147,000. Wow. The UK also lags behind military powers such as Bangladesh, Egypt, Pakistan, Turkey, Thailand and Colombia in service size. Its forces are similar in numbers to those of Sudan, Ethiopia, Greece and Malaysia. In 2021, the UK Armed Forces were the smallest they had been in 400 years, and still we want to talk tough, like we're still a big power. We not. And the thing is, on polls that I've seen, people don't want to fight. People don't want to fight for this government we have, for the state of the country it is right now. You try hiring new people and then getting them ready, and what? The war could be declared tomorrow. You know, if a NATO ship is blown out of the sky, or a missile from Russia goes off course and hits Poland or Latvia or something, and Article 5 is triggered. War, we are so close to it. It's only going to take one thing, and we are so unprepared and underfunded and understaffed. So despite initiatives to increase its size, all three branches of the armed forces are under their target size, with the Army below by 3%, Navy by 8% and Air Force by 13%. However, the military believes it's more effective than comparatively sized forces due to superior equipment. But not when you're fighting armed forces that are 10 times bigger than you or more. Last year, ministers promised to plough 1.3 billion into army recruitment and bolster the UK's depleted armed forces and tackle a crisis of staff retention. The Armed Forces Recruitment Service, to be launched in 2027. Okay, so we've got to wait till next year for it. Aims to streamline the hiring process and ensure the British military remains ready to face emerging threats. Just don't start a war before then, otherwise we fucked. Wow, it's good to see they're trying to rush this through, innit? It will replace individual schemes run by the Royal Navy, British Army and Royal Air Force, but even with the push for recruitment, experts say the UK could struggle to keep up with its commitments to Ukraine without significantly impacting its ability to defend itself in other areas. Even conservative estimates of 10,000 troops on deployment would put pressure on the UK's regular army, according to Stuart Young, a former engineer officer in the Royal Navy and visiting fellow at Cranfield University. This is not looking good. And if we are called to defend ourselves, and we are so understaffed and underprepared, we're screwed. We are, I hate to say it, but kind of feels like a sitting duck is how we are. And what worries me is it's not just Russia. If we just had issues going on in Eastern Europe, and at least we might have a small armed force, even if the US was to step away, we'd be in big trouble. But we've got Germany, who are underfunded. They've not put enough into their military. France, the same. Poland are putting us all to shame. And again, love him or loathe him, Donald Trump said you need to pay your way. And we've said, yeah, we will. Sometime. Poland are embarrassing us and going above and beyond. Russia's on their border. They've been occupied before. I get it. We're not taking it serious. And it's not just Russia. That's the thing. We've got Iran. With what's going on in Iran at the moment, and whether the Islamic Republic will fall. Will there be a civil war perhaps? And then retaliation from sympathisers who view the West as to blame for what happened. And we all know at the moment people are turning up on our borders and just being welcomed in. We don't know who they are, where they come from. If you were a foreign adversary, you'd be sending sleeper cells over. I would. You would to another country if you were trying to destabilise it or planning something from within. We've got what's going on in the wider Middle East with Israel and Lebanon and Gaza and everywhere around there that has our footprints on it. The Korean Peninsula, that's never far away from the news. And a big one that everyone's waiting for because they said they're going to do it is China invading Taiwan. And the US's promise to protect Taiwan. Now, if their attention is drawn, in the direction of Taiwan, they're going to say, you know what, Europe, you're on your own. You sort out Russia. There's no two ways about it. The US definitely has more than one eye on China at the moment. And just like that, it could be a global conflict. A genuine global conflict. China taking Taiwan. North Korea advancing to the south. Israel being invaded by countries around them. Or the other way around, Israel pushing out. Iran, who knows what's going to happen. Russia continuing into Ukraine, Moldova, Poland. Venezuela with what's happening there, and Mexico and with the US. It is scary times, and I keep saying it, I hope I'm wrong. But we are so close to World War III. We might even be that close that it's already started. So to finish off, I'd like to finish on a cheery, high note, happy note, with a big smile, and a cheers. So I found this site as I was doing some research for this. WW3risk.org. I thought this looks like a cheery one. Here's World War 3 coming. Oh, look at these lovely pictures. Oh, angry man pushing the red button. Isn't this cheery? But what I found on this was the World War 3 risk indicator. Let's have a click on here and let's see what they say. So this is the World War 3 daily risk index. Here you can view the current World War 3 risk score index. The score is updated daily to reflect the most relevant and up-to-date global conflict indicators. Offers a quick snapshot of the current level of geopolitical tension and potential for large-scale conflict. And there we have it. World War 3 risk is high, 61.14 out of 100. Hey, there's a 38.86% chance it doesn't happen, right? That's just over a third. Happy times. I told you I was going to finish with some cheery stuff. Now, I've never heard of this guy as well, but as I was searching, I found this. I thought, you know what? It was a good little read. So, this is from Ryan G. Height. Don't know who he is, but he's an author and a blogger, it says. Okay, so World War III, the hypothetical conflict that could redefine humanity's future. The concept of the Third World War has long been the subject of fear and fascination. After the devastating global conflicts of the 20th century, one would think humanity would avoid a colossal war. Yes, you would hope so. Yet as tension rise across the globe, with nations flouting international law, conflicts brewing in Europe, and escalating disputes in Asia, the idea of World War III feels less like fiction and more like a grim possibility. I'm not the only miserable fucker, because he's thinking it too. But what might World War III actually look like? Who would fight and where would battles occur? In this thought experiment, we unpack the hypothetical alliances, key players and theatres of war that could define humanity's final and most catastrophic conflict. So, the sides in World War III. So side A, the West. So the Five Eyes Alliance, which is US, Canada, UK, Australia and New Zealand. NATO and the EU. Asian allies in Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, the Philippines and others. So Israel, Ukraine. All versus the axis of disorder. So Russia, China, Iran and North Korea. And then the others, Belarus, Central Asian nations, potentially, Turkey and Hungary, potentially. Global theatres of conflict. So the East and South China Seas, a flashpoint in Asia. These waterways are critical for global trade and military strategy. Western naval forces would vie to restrict China's access, whilst China would defend key cities like Shanghai and protect its maritime routes. Taiwan's semiconductor industry would be a high priority. Number 2, the Middle East, with its vast energy resources. The Middle East would see intense fighting. Saudi Arabia, Israel and other Gulf states would align with the West, countering adversaries like Iran. Control over oil supplies would be critical for sustaining military operations. So Europe, Eastern Europe, already a hotbed of tension, would become a major battlefield. Russia, with Belarus, might push into NATO territories like the Baltics or Poland. While Ukraine remains at the front lines, Finland's recent NATO membership and its long border with Russia makes it another potential flashpoint. The Arctic, often overlooked, yes it is. The Arctic offers strategic advantages for both sides. Russia's Northern Fleet and Arctic bases could threaten North America directly, while Western nations like Canada and Denmark would work to counteract this influence. The Korean Peninsula. We already said North and South Korea. They technically are still at war. So the key factors influencing the war: technology and cyber warfare. In a modern global conflict, cyber warfare would play a critical role. Attacks on infrastructure, communications, and financial systems could cripple nations before a single missile is fired. Resource control. Energy resources in the Middle East and mineral wealth in Africa would become key objectives. Controlling these would determine the economic and military endurance of the warring sides. And then the role of neutral nations. Countries like Switzerland, India, and African nations might initially stay neutral. However, as the war progresses, economic pressures and geopolitical realities could force them to choose sides. And then just quickly, the aftermath. It's impossible to predict how such a war would end. The devastation of nuclear weapons, economic collapse, and global instability could leave the world unrecognizable, even in a best-case scenario where nuclear weapons aren't used. The social and economic repercussions would be immense. I hope for peace. Christ above, I hope and pray for peace. No one wants to look weak. All these leaders want to flop out and say, look how big man is. And we are being edged further closer to a precipice, an outcome that could potentially wipe out humanity, and not one of these political geniuses have the humility or the intelligence or just the fucking brain to say, do you know what, let's take a step back. Cooler heads will prevail. That was a line from 13 Days, which was all about the Cuban Missile Crisis. I hope cooler heads prevail. I fear the countries around the world, my own included, are ran by morons. Prove me wrong. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. Maybe you think I'm way off and the world's never been so happy, and 2026 is going to be the greatest year of all time. Hey, I hope you're right. If that's how you feel, I genuinely hope you are right. I need something to cheer me up right now after an episode like that. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Stu Know Who. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. You can find me at Stu Know Who. I'm also on X at Stu Know Who, and the same with Spotify. Again, thank you so much for watching. I like the damn video. And until next time, I'll see you later.